follower. Welcome to the Beverly Hills Bar Association's Entertainment Law Sections panel, Depp v. Heard, the attorneys who broke it down for the masses. In a warning to all, today's panel may include descriptions of drug taking and domestic violence. And now it is my pleasure to introduce the attorneys who broke it down for the masses, who we are very happy to have joining us. First and foremost is Emily Baker, who is a former deputy district attorney who has become a sought-after legal analyst and has been featured on ABC, NBC, BBC, the AP, and all the letters of the alphabet, basically, and in Rolling Stone, People, and Insider. And now with our very own BHBA. During Emily's coverage of the trial, she regularly had over 100,000 concurrent live viewers, and I was just informed that she had 359,000 or some odd viewers yesterday. She has garnered over 63 million views on YouTube with more than 38 million watch hours and built a passionate community across platforms. Emily, thank you for joining us. Our next guest is, and I'm not going to butcher this name, I made sure, Limor Moj Dehi Azad. I will be calling her Limor this entire time. Limor is a family law attorney who has provided analysis and commentary throughout the 6-week trial with over 180 million views. It's impressive on content related to the trial. Limor has amassed over 480,000 TikTok supporters, launched a podcast entitled Love and Order, and has been featured on Court TV, NBC, BBC One, I-24, Insider, and other outlets, including various podcasts discussing her views on the case. Fantastic. So now I've seen promotional stills of our next guest. He's been seen with a firearm on his desk, so don't mess with him. Okay. Bruce Rivers has handled over 2,000 criminal cases. Mr. Rivers has achieved acquittals on cases ranging from DWI to first, second, and third-degree murder. He has also handled white-collar and high-profile cases requiring unique judgment and experience. Oh, and I've read here that he's even represented lawyers through tough situations. Good. So a good person to have in one's Rolodex. That's an old reference. Bruce's YouTube channel has amassed over 36 million views and gained over 600K subscribers. And last but not least, Peter Tragos. Peter's practice focuses on fighting for injured victims of wrongful death, car accidents, premises liability, and negligent security cases. Peter won a national championship while on the mock trial team at Florida State University College of Law. And as a trial attorney, he has tried a host of cases from state to federal and criminal to civil. Recently, Peter expanded his research and sharpened his skills by reviewing and analyzing high-profile trials on his YouTube channel, The Lawyer You Know, which recently reached a milestone of 100,000 subscribers. Congratulations, Peter. Welcome, one and all. And welcome to all of you watching this panel via Zoom, YouTube, TikTok, Twitch, and MySpace. From wherever you're watching, you're all welcome. And for those of you getting CLE for this, you have to wait until the very end, otherwise you don't qualify. So sit back, relax, and enjoy, and you'll get your email certificate after you stay till the end. Panelists, was the verdict a shocker, or do you see this coming from a mile off? Let's start with Emily.
I was really surprised that they went for all 3 causes of action. When I started this trial, I'm like, why are we going to trial? And then after I saw Amber Heard testify, I was like, oh, this is why we're going to trial. And I was like, all right, I can see this on count 1, the headline. I didn't see it on the other 2. So I was very surprised. I was surprised they found the counterclaim. Curious how they decided actual malice. Really curious how they decided actual malice on the counterclaim. So yeah, I was absolutely surprised. I was surprised by the punitive damages. I was surprised by the damages award. This trial had a lot of moments that were surprising, and that's what made it so riveting to watch, isn't it?
Limor?
Shocked, absolutely shocked. Based on the law and facts, when this thing started, actual malice, I had no clue that this jury would find, I didn't know how they would find actual malice on either side, to be completely honest. And that's what I continue to tell my audience. And just like Emily, the second Amber Heard took the stand, I realized, oh, this is why you have jury trials, because of what's about to happen right now. But absolutely shocked. It's a jury trial, so they're the ones who made the decision.
Bruce.
I predicted it on my channel, and I didn't predict exactly what would happen, but I thought Johnny would win. I didn't think she would win so much, but because I thought it was more tangential for her claims. As far as the punitive damage claim goes, I that did surprise me in the sense that the malice part of it had to be proven by clear and convincing evidence. But I think the malice part was framed by who she was as a person. If you look at the recordings, you're a effing baby, Johnny. I mean, that kind of tells you all you need to know. And if something's false, and you look at the timing right around the timing of her divorce, and it really looks like she's being vindictive.
And last but not least, Peter.
I mean, I was personally shocked by the verdict. Not that Johnny won. I think anybody that, all three of these panelists up here with me have a lot more people in their chats. And I do think that the people that comment on our videos are a cross section of humanity, kind of like the jury, right? They're not exactly the same, but the overwhelming support for Johnny, he seems more credible than Amber Heard on the stand. And I say it in 99% of my trials, the victor comes down to which party the jury likes better. And I think that's just what happened in this case. They believed Johnny, they liked him better, so they come down across the board, yes, for him. I was shocked she won on any of her counterclaims. I don't know how there was any evidence that Adam Waldman was directed by Johnny Depp to do that. I don't know how they proved what Adam Waldman's knowledge was, that he had malice in what he said. I guess what he said was technically false on the counterclaim that they ruled in favor of Amber Heard on, but did he know it was false? Did he do it to try to hurt her? I just don't see how they actually connected all of those dots to come down to a verdict in her favor on the counterclaim, which creates a lot of issues post-trial now with attorney's fees and who actually won. Did they both win? So it was really interesting and really shocking to me that she won on anything, frankly.
In a way, it sort of looks like a comparative fault kind of verdict in a sense. It's like, okay, well, this is what's going on with Johnny, and so we're going to ascribe some fault over here. And it just seems like that's kind of what they did.
But did they put the fault on Johnny, really? It almost seems like they put the fault on Adam Waldman, because they believed everything Johnny said. Everything Amber said, they said was false and knowingly false, right? With that actual malice. It almost feels like they put some liability on Adam Waldman and just didn't connect the Waldman Depp statements as they were trying to call them throughout trial. That's how I felt it was, at least, especially with the 0 for punitives for Johnny and 5 million buckaroos against Amber, trying to punish her and change her action so people do not act like she acted.
It's almost like they compromised in the jury room and we're like, all right, well, this one's technically false, so we're just going to throw it there and we're going to go with 2 million. It definitely felt like there was a little bit of compromising. But again, I rather have a jury compromise than hang any day of the week. And you could see how crestfallen these attorneys were when the verdict form had an error. I wasn't surprised that they didn't fill everything out. There were a lot of questions to get through, but you could see Amber Heard's lawyers walking back to the table just looking crestfallen because they knew that they were losing all 3 counts. And it was a surprise for all 3 counts for me.
So this is a follow-up question. What are your fans saying about the verdict? We'll start with Emily again.
Hashtag justice for Johnny Depp. I mean, I have seen it in chat after chat after chat, and my audience has a lot of survivors. And there are a lot of them saying, I resonated with Johnny Depp. I didn't resonate with her story. I didn't resonate with the evidence. I don't like that she and her lawyers are trying to speak for all victims and all survivors. And I wanted this win for Johnny Depp. And that's what I've seen across the board. Some having questions about it, but most of them saying, I wanted to see this verdict for Johnny Depp.
Great. Lamore?
My followers, no disrespect to anyone else here, but my followers or my supporters are the most sophisticated people on planet Earth. I went through the special verdict form with them on live, and we went through every single element. And first of all, that special verdict form was written horribly. I don't know how anyone even understood it.
Oh, it's not great. Yes.
It was not great, but we went through it, and they were telling me, Lamore, he's going to win. The answer to this is yes, 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 or no, whatever it was. It was so confusing. I don't even
Yes.
remember. But yeah, it was yes, 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 all down the board. And they were the ones who actually explained to me, based on what they saw in that courtroom, based on the evidence, the testimony, why they chose yes for each element. And, you know, they are all, for the most part, justice for Johnny Depp, but they are all collectively anti-DV. So they stayed focused on the case being a defamation case, and they went through the elements the same way I assumed that the jury did, because they reached the same verdict as the jury.
Excellent. Bruce?
You know, there's two things that happen over and over and over again. I had many people who claimed to be survivors of domestic violence, and they would actually send me pictures that were just horrific, and say, you know, if you're getting beaten with rings on your hand, you're gonna break the skin. And she's got pictures of everything else except that. And then the other one is people really felt a connection to Johnny Depp. They just felt bad for him, and they, like Emily said, hashtag justice for Johnny. That was constant. Nobody believed a thing she had to say.
Peter?
Well, her testimony was unique.
How about you, Peter?
Dream
Yeah, I mean, it's all echoing the same thing. And I went on other shows as well, as I know a lot of these people did. And it's 97% for Johnny on all my polls. It was 97% for Johnny. And it wasn't 3% for Amber. It was about 1% for Amber and 2%. I don't believe either of them. That was actually a stronger push in the audience than just believing Amber on her own. And that's what it's all justice for Johnny. It's all, you know, men too, hashtag men too movement. That's what everybody wants. And I think it was a really interesting thing that we learned throughout the trial, that it's okay for men to be victims of domestic violence too. And it's okay for them to come and speak out about it and to fight against society's wrath in the reverse from what Amber Heard said in her op-ed. And I think that was a big part of the trial and a big goal of Johnny Depp's, more than perhaps the money.
Excellent. So moving on to the second question, if social media was anything to go by, guys, there sure were some spectacles during this trial, for better, for worse. We'd love to get your highlights. We had videos prepared for this, but we seem to be having technical difficulties. So let's go one by one and just have you guys describe your highlights of the case. Emily?
Oh, we're doing it without video.
You can do it.
I mean, I would have to, I don't have the verbatim of my first one, but I think the first highlight for me was Ben Rottenborn trying to make Johnny Depp's sexting literal. He was trying to read those text messages as if they were insinuating violence, when the text messages said, "I have other uses for your throat that don't involve injury." Those were not literal texts. Those were sexts. And watching him read them into the record literally was not just hilarious, but also kind of awkward. And then Johnny Depp at the end looks up and goes, "Could you read it again?" And I lost my mind. I was like, of course he did. Not only are we talking about sexting, but now we've got Johnny Depp clapping back at Rottenborn, trying to really make something that wasn't. And I think that hurt their case. They tried to make some of these texts that were clearly hyperbolic literal. And I think it took the power out of the texts that were damaging. But those damaging texts, the texts with really awful language in them, weren't set to Amber Heard.
I've gotten notice that we may have fixed the audio issue.
That would be lovely, because I didn't do that clip justice at all.
Kathleen, can you try to play the first clip?
Yeah, there we go.
No, I heard it.
I think that was, can you try playing it one more time? Third time's a charm.
Yeah, there we go. So Mr. Depp, on September 6th, 2013, you send Miss Heard a text that says, "Thank you for your letter. I love you."
Yes.
Scroll down.
Correct.
She writes, "Thank you for mine." Did I read that right?
You did.
And then you write, the only reason we go for the throat is love. Did I read that right?
You did.
And then she writes, my throat is yours. You're going to be the death of me, but I don't care. And then you write, I have other uses for your throat which do not include injury. I have other uses
highlighter
for your throat which
Did I
do
read that
not
right?
include injury.
Sorry, did you read that again?
These are your words, sir, right? I read that right, correct?
You did.
Yes, you read it literally accurately, Rottenborn. It was literally accurate, but you missed all of the context.
How about that as an impeachment question? Did I read that right? Did I read that right? Like,
No, you didn't. Can
Yeah.
you read it again and
Yeah.
again and again?
So next up, we're going to a video from Limor. The array of witnesses we saw who wanted nothing to do with this case. It's the subject. And Kathleen, can you try playing that clip, please?
Imagine you're a building manager and you're just tending to your regular duties throughout the day, and then boom, you get served with a subpoena to be a witness in the Johnny Depp versus Amber Heard defamation trial. Would you feel the same way witness Alejandro Romero felt?
So I did that as part of my job, make sure they're safe, but I didn't understand why they want me to do that. Like, oh, I don't know. I just so stressed out because of this. I just don't want to deal with this anymore. I'm tired. I don't want to deal with this court case. Everybody got problems, and I don't want to deal with this no more. I don't want to put this with any more words.
The interaction you just has.
When they didn't he just take off right after that?
Yes, he did. There were 3 parts. This was just
He
one
just
of
took
3
off without
parts.
being done with his testimony.
Right. I mean, who wants to sit for a deposition? Who wants to sit for a deposition, let alone someone who is working full time? He was just trying to help the tenants at this building get into their unit. They were scared because of a dog. Something was scratching. They saw scratches, right? And then all of a sudden, he has to do a video deposition, and he's like, I don't have time. I kind of think he was on his lunch break, maybe it was. And he was just one of many fan favorite witnesses. All of them were on Johnny's side, but he was just one of many. And, I think at that point in the trial, everyone felt the same way. Like, can't you guys just leave each other alone? What is this about? What is happening? What the hell is going on? Leave us alone. Leave me out of it. I'm just the door guy. I love my job. Leave me alone. So I think all of the witnesses were a highlight. We eventually saw Kate Moss, right? And she was, that was her first time in court, right? We never get to see things like this. We always, we take depositions, we're always in court, but I think for the audience to see these depositions being played in court and then a live witness in court, that was just one of the biggest highlights, I think, for many, many people.
Agreed. So next up, we're moving to Bruce. Bruce, do you have a video or a screen share you'd like to share, or just a highlight from your point of view?
No, I don't. I mean, I can tell you what one of my favorite ones, and I'll act it out.
Oh God. Bury the platypus.
Do I have to answer that? I mean, I the quality of that expert was just the communication, the skills. I mean, he might have looked good on paper, but when he sat down in that witness chair, he was so awful. And he diagnosed him from watching his movies, which is just insane. And when you put a witness up like that, that hurts the rest of your case. It's like that cringe feeling when you're at the wedding and you see the creepy uncle dancing with the young girls. I mean, you just are like, get me out of here. I don't want the rest of this case to be like that. And with this guy, I think he destroyed a bunch of credibility, for Amber Heard's side, for sure.
Great. Next, but last but not least, Peter's clip. Can you play that, Kathleen, please?
There's a few different types of damages, but one of the things that the court has talked to you about, she told you that because we have defamation, it's invidious, and therefore it's very difficult to prove these. And so these damages to business reputation, inconvenience, embarrassment are presumed. You don't have to prove those damages. And one great example of that is the testimony from Mr. Hamada at Warner Brothers. He didn't want to have to get in the middle of all of this with Aquaman 2. They haven't even released it. So he didn't read anything in preparation for his deposition. He didn't talk to anybody before his deposition. He said that he tried to do technicals and say, no, we never terminated her contract. But, oh, yeah, we did tell her we were probably not going to renew her option. And then we didn't change the script, but Amber got the script, and yes, they did change it. Then he said, you know, no, we never negotiate salaries, but oh yeah, we did renegotiate Jason Momoa's and Gal Gadot's. So he just doesn't want to admit to any of these things. But what came out in Hamada's deposition, and I hope you were listening carefully to this, was the email from James Wan, the director, and Jason Momoa, her co-star, who said they guarantee if they are in the film, she is going to be Mara in the film. Why would they do that unless they thought Warner Brothers was being unfair to her? And why did she get almost knocked out of it? Because of the defamatory statements. When they came out, they took on a life of their own. Ron Schnell, the young Sheldon, I call him, or the Doogie Howser, our expert on IT, took you through and tracked how they tracked the defamatory statements, the language from the defamatory statements, how that went through the social media and the negative social media. And it kept going and kept going. And he tracked all the way until a few months ago over 2.36 million negative tweets, negative Instagrams, negative social media's comments about Amber that relate specifically to the information that was in those 3 defamatory statements. It took on a life of its own. They started to get Amber fired from Aquaman 2. They have continued to this day. They have followed her everywhere. Everybody has stopped wanting her. L'Oreal won't use her, even though they've kept her on from that time. She lost 3 different opportunities that were being discussed with her. The most significant part of that, though, is that Aquaman was the biggest blockbuster ever for DC Films. It was the biggest. It was over $1 billion. This was her opportunity for her star. Even the experts from Mr. Depp admitted this was her blockbuster. This was her mega. But what happened instead? As she's going through, as it's coming out, and in that 16 months, they were going, well, nothing happened.
We can pause this. I think the clips got mixed up for the highlights on this. I don't know how long this clip is, but real quick. So I'll just give my highlight real quick. This is the most perfect trial for TMZ, right? And to me, the TMZ was the highlight. And it came out in two major ways. First was her video deposition they impeached her with, where she admits that somebody tips off TMZ. And it was over for me when I saw that video depo. You could see how her demeanor was just totally different. And that's why we video depos sometimes, because we can use it. And then everybody remembers the former TMZ employee who claps back at Elaine and says, maybe you're here for your 15 minutes of fame representing Amber Heard. So to me, TMZ being part of this, right on brand trial for them, that was the highlight for me. Throughout this trial, they
were very linked into it, and I actually have Morgan Tremaine's clip. I think that's my second clip, so hopefully we'll get to see it.
Yeah, I mean that was one that
a moment.
Was amazing.
Yeah,
this is a good segue into the third topic, and there are no objections allowed to this compound question, guys. I'm sorry. This is on winning in the court of public opinion. Who did a better job and why? We'll start with Emily.
Team Johnny Depp did a much better job at winning in the court of public opinion. I think that Elaine Bredehoff started with opening statement. It was just jointed. It was kind of grating. It was hard to relate to. She looked better on the Today Show today than she did in court, but we saw how Marcia Clark was treated in the OJ case. And we know that female attorneys are judged more on their looks and presence. And it should have been a conversation where either she brought up that conversation or her firm supported her. And then you have Camille Vasquez as like the shining shining knight of justice in all white, coming in and being a superstar in her cross-examination and in this trial, and her becoming a figure for, you know, people getting tattoos and her own like fandom starting, shows how much those attorneys understood the assignment. And knowing the cases being played out in the media, the attorneys have to consider not just the legal strategy, but also the strategy in the court of public opinion. And I don't think Team Heard considered it at all, like at all. Team Depp was very aware of it, and I think they did a fantastic job. And I think their witnesses were ready, their experts were prepared, and they kind of won people over.
Limor?
I think that Johnny Depp won in the court of public opinion on day one, from day one. And that could have to do with his superstar power. I mean, I didn't even know Amber Heard was an Aquaman. I had no idea. And, you know, Johnny Depp just has this star power, and no one was ready for the world to sit for 6 weeks and watch a defamation trial. That to me sounds boring AF. Sorry, but this wasn't boring because why? We had Johnny Depp on the stand. We had rock star attorneys doing an excellent job, and people don't get that type of vantage point ever unless you do what we do, right? So it just became this addictive thing that we were all doing together. And I think that, you know, Johnny Depp did some things in court. So did Morgan Tremaine, who is a fan favorite, things in court that we would never advise our clients or witnesses to do ever, right? But it worked. It worked for them because the court of public opinion and a jury look at things very differently than a judge and a bunch of lawyers, right? So I think that from day one, he won. When he got on the stand, he kept winning. She got on the stand, he kept winning. And you know, it's Johnny Depp, and Amber's side kind of followed the rules when it came to just sit there kind of emotionless, just sit back, don't really do too much. The jury's watching. But I'm shocked that they didn't pick up on that like day 3 because they were allowed to look at social media. So what the heck were you guys thinking?
Yeah. I wonder if they relied too much on the UK case. They still seem to be relying on. I think they were overconfident in the UK case and didn't realize that this was a completely different show.
Absolutely.
Bruce, thoughts?
Picking up on that, I think you're right. I think they first of all, the star power can only take you so far. I mean, if you're not prepared, you're not prepared. And Team Depp was at their experts seemed like they were top notch. They didn't really have to struggle for questions. They knew how to refocus when they got objected to. Like when Elaine says, I'm trying here. I mean, what the hell is that? I mean,
who knows?
you look like it.
It's not what the hell is that? It's what if anything is that?
Well, I mean, right. Yeah, what if anything is the cure-all, right? And then she just didn't know what she was doing. And granted, they had a tougher case. Without a doubt, they had a tougher case because they had I think an almost uncontrollable client because she went off. I mean, she did not have to bring up Kate Moss. If she didn't bring up Kate Moss doesn't testify, period. And
I think they could have won the case, Bruce. I think Amber Heard's team could have won the case.
I don't disagree with you.
She lost it for herself.
I agree.
But when you have somebody, that is just solidly prepared, and Camille was cold as ice, and she was a laser, and I was riveted by her cross. And I think it was really smart to have a mano on mano, have woman on woman. I don't think a guy could have gotten away with that cross.
No,
it had to
not at all. It had, though what I was really surprised about is when we got the rebuttal and Amber Heard took the stand again in rebuttal, which is a whole separate conversation. The chemistry with her direct examination with Ben Rottenborn was so much better. It was so much easier to listen to. I'm surprised they didn't have him do the direct and show her being kind of taken care of and guided through by her attorney. It felt like her and Elaine Bredehoff were fighting with each other during her direct examination the whole time.
I thought
Yeah, I don't
Roger had
disagree
some
with that.
positive parts throughout the trial. I can pick some highlights of
Yes.
his lawyering throughout the trial. Me personally, and his presentation, especially at the beginning of closing, I thought was really strong personally.
Yes.
I
yes.
do too. He always had
Yes.
his mic turned on.
Ooh.
You know, a little bit of humility, or built in, oh, I'm sorry about that, oh, I got a spot on my, a little bit of that aw shucksness works. But now when it's over and over and over again, and then you go,
Not when it's not an act.
I'm trying here.
Cameras are on. Everyone is watching. What is
trying here.
happening?
I don't know how to not ask a leading question.
Yeah.
Really what I'm saying.
Peter, what are your thoughts?
So when we were talking about the court of public opinion, right, and circling
Yep.
it back to that, if you want to know who won the court of public opinion, we found out in the trial. We found out from multiple experts how there were hashtag justice for Johnny Depp being posted by millions of people, hashtag Amber Turd asked over and over again by the lawyers and experts opining on what that means and how it's working and how many people are posting it. Amber Heard saying she's getting crushed on social media. Look her up. I mean, we found out during the trial who won the court of public opinion. They told the jury, I'm getting crushed in the court of public opinion. I mean, to me, I was shocked. Very clear.
I was shocked they did that. I was shocked that came in. And
What are you
if you
doing?
go
How is
back
it
and look
happening?
at it, you will see Judge A looking at the demonstratives going, like when they bring the demonstratives up that have hashtag justice for Johnny Depp, hashtag Amber Turd on them, the judge is reacting to them. And this judge was stoic really throughout this case. And when the jury was out, you saw her joking a little bit with the lawyers, and you saw that this was a courtroom where everybody clearly felt comfortable. But seeing her face like that from the bench, looking at those demonstratives, I was like, oh, what's coming next? And then all of those hashtags come in. I don't know why you make that choice. I don't know why you ever make that choice.
Imagine being a professor at NYU or whatever at 12 years old, and then you're talking about hashtag Amber Turd as where has your career gone wrong? It's got to feel a little weird for him, I would think.
They did not ask him the right questions.
No.
So actually, this is a good segue, and we're just going to switch around my questions a little bit. Kathleen, can you please play the video from topic 7? Uh-oh, is there audio?
I know you testified earlier that you haven't been smirking in this trial, but you sure were caught on camera smirking in that video.
I disagree with that.
Was also not included in the TMZ video.
Everyone can watch that video and you can determine whether you think it's, come from me.
Ms. Heard, you edited out the portions that made you look bad before sending it to TMZ.
You're very wrong about that.
So
if
that
I
only
wanted to
Mr.
leak
Depp
information, I
looked
could have
bad.
done it in a more effective way, a lot sooner and a lot more.
Because you
I
knew
was
exactly
living
how to
with
do
a
that,
mountain
right?
of this evidence. If I wanted to leak it, I could have done a lot more with it.
I thought you testified earlier in this trial that you didn't know how to leak things.
I
Remember
don't.
that?
Objection, Your Honor.
Ms. Heard, did Ms. Van Ray come out after that article came in and make a public statement it was false? Of course she did.
Objection, Your Honor, hearsay.
Maybe
Objection, Your Honor, lack of foundation.
All right, I'll sustain the objection. Next question.
Objection, leading.
Sustain.
Objection, Your Honor, hearsay.
I'll sustain the objection.
All that
Objection, Your
question?
Honor, leading.
Your Honor, I'm entitled to go into what Ms. Vasquez asked.
The objection is leading. I'll sustain the objection.
Vasquez.
I'll sustain the objection as to hearsay.
Okay. What, if any, you were asked if you had, it was suggested that you had not produced this in discovery. Is that true or false?
Objection, Your Honor, leading.
Your Honor, she absolutely did that.
It's leading. It is leading question, though. I'll sustain
What
the
if any?
objection as to leading.
Objection, Your Honor, leading.
Sustain as to leading.
Objection, Your Honor. This is outside the scope of cross-examination.
It's prior consistent statements.
I'm going to sustain the objection.
It's observations for
I'm
the
gonna
12/17, the same day.
Sustain the objection.
Objection, Your Honor.
I
Leading.
think I can bring
Calls for
this up.
speculation.
It's still leading. I'll
WTF.
sustain the objection.
Okay. Do you recall? I'm trying.
Objection, Your Honor, hearsay.
Oh,
Sustain.
man.
Objection, Your Honor.
It can be fun to watch
Speculation.
good lawyering.
All right, I'll sustain as speculation.
Objection, Your Honor, hearsay.
Your Honor said I could redirect after the cross-examination.
You still have to ask a proper question, Elaine.
Objection, Your Honor,
That's what
hearsay.
it looks like getting your ass
I'll
kicked.
sustain the objection. Next question.
Painful.
Next question.
Yeah, okay.
I give up.
I don't have
happened
more
next?
questions, John.
No,
Yeah.
thank you.
And then she finished on that.
And then she
That's
gave
Was
up.
that
brutal.
SNL?
She
Was
didn't
that
finish.
SNL? Has SNL covered this yet?
Remind
She
you of
didn't
my
finish. She gave up.
I feel bad for her
Yeah.
in one sense, but but it's just like it's hard. It is hard to kind of watch.
It's hard to, I mean, it's hard to watch as trial attorneys
Yeah,
that are used to standing on your feet and asking questions. You might get one or two that you're like, okay, well, that wasn't the best question ever. And you rebound and keep going. Elaine seemed to not be super comfortable in the courtroom. And I don't know if that was the outside pressure, if that was that she doesn't do a lot of trials and does mostly depositions, or if that was that she and her client were just fighting with each other. Like it felt like this push-pull between the two of them. And it was just not good. And then the speaking objections back to the judge is what really put me over the edge.
That's a judge problem, in my opinion. You got to have something prepared for cross and redirect. Yes, you're responding, you're taking notes, you're adding to it. You got to have something to fall back on so that when this happens, you just look down and say, here's something good. Let's ask this question on redirect. Camille Vasquez, excuse me, it became first name basis on my channel. So I apologize if anybody was offended by that. But yeah, she had stuff prepared for everything. She would add to it, but she was very prepared with everything that she did. And Elaine just did not seem as prepared.
Absolutely. You have to feel bad for her. I mean, it's a tough job in general, but with all the cameras, everyone in the courtroom hates you, hates your client. I was shocked to see that she didn't, just as Peter is saying, that she didn't have some sort of outline, some sort of, even if it sounded that like it was out of order, just a sentence you could read, so that you can get an answer that you want. Just one. But again, I feel bad for her. I feel bad for all of the attorneys on both sides. I think they both did a great job, but you watch this and you think to yourself, whoa, you guys have been working years and years on this. What happened?
It can't feel good for the client either, though. Imagine
Right.
sitting on the stand, watching your lawyer not be able to get a question out and the lack of confidence. I mean, for whatever you might think about Amber Heard, she deserves good legal representation. And to be sitting on the witness stand feeling like you don't have anyone that has your back, that's not what we saw when Johnny Depp was on the stand. His team had his back. It felt like she was kind of left there hanging alone while her attorney is gripping the podium going, I'm trying. It was just a mess.
And didn't she just storm out of the courtroom right after that?
Yes. The judge told her to go sit back at counsel table and she walked out of the courtroom. And the next day, the bailiff was sitting between counsel table and the exit.
Yeah.
So what do you guys think is next for Camille? Do we think that besides a cover shoot with Annie Leibovitz for Vogue, I mean, what do you think she's going to be doing?
Charging $1,500 an hour?
At least.
Raising her rate, getting head high. I imagine there's firms that are going to be looking at her. But it seemed, it was really nice to watch Team Depp work so well together. Those attorneys had a lot of trust together. They worked very well together. And you would see Ben Chew in an argument and somebody would slide up a Post-it and it would get worked right in to his argument. And we really saw a law firm that had each other's backs and worked as a team. I don't know if she'd want to go anywhere. I think it would be great to see her make partner. I think that's probably appropriate, but they worked really well together and they seemed to be genuinely happy with one another. So that can't be overstated in this profession, that a good work environment is worth its weight in gold.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Bruce.
When you try a case for almost 7 weeks, when you try a case that long, you get to know everybody that's involved, your own team, the other side, the judges, the bailiffs. I mean, you really get to know somebody, and you get to know how I tried a case with two other people once, and I didn't realize that one of the people we were trying with the case with was so insanely stupid. And it's just like, oh my God, you've been litigating this for this long and you don't know jack about jack. And I didn't sense any of that discord on Johnny Depp's team. You watch some of the arguments and the look of confusion as Elaine's giving her closing argument on her own fucking team's faces. It's like, man, you guys get at least hide it.
Yeah.
And you
when
didn't see them. No, go ahead, Peter. No, go.
When you try a case like this, lesser attorneys than Ben Chu would try to hog the spotlight, do more witnesses, make more arguments. He trusted a lot of younger looking lawyers, no idea how old they actually were. But he trusted a lot of lawyers to cut their teeth, have their time to shine. And I think it's smart because they could focus in on that one witness and do the best job for that one witness than Ben Chu trying to take 25 witnesses and do his best on the ones that he could do. So I give him a lot of credit as well for allowing everybody to work together as a team. You have to trust somebody that you're going to try a case with for 6 weeks, like Bruce said. I've only ever tried trials that long with my dad. So that's who taught me how to be a lawyer. So it's easy for me, but I mean, it's tough to go in there and really trust the person you're going to battle with for that day after day after day after day. You've got to be ready to perform. That's something.
And it's tough. I've been the junior counsel on homicide cases that were quite long. And when you are trusted like that, it is a weight knowing that you don't want to mess anything up, but B, you also don't want the person who's trusted you with the witnesses, the case, the voir dire, whatever it is, to feel like they've made a mistake in their judgment in you. So it is a lot of pressure when you're that junior attorney. And it does take a very confident senior partner to have that kind of faith. But watching their team work together was really, really nice to see.
I'm going to move on to the next topic. So, and you guys, your opinion, what do you think the power of social media's influence was on public opinion for this case? I mean, I was being pushed through Instagram and TikTok constantly, just whether or not I even cared at the beginning, and then I finally did. So let's hear from Emily first.
I mean, I was streaming this trial day in and day out, and we were regularly over 100,000 live concurrent viewers from all over the world. And that's, I mean, not just because of social media, because people were seeing the memes coming out on TikTok, but wanting to see what was going on in court and kind of placing it all together. But social media had the rest of the evidence. Like the evidence that wasn't in court is on social media from the UK case. So people now have the ability to play like internet detective and be like, oh, but this part's cut out of that deposition. And we know that this person said this here and they're on the witness list. So there was a very engaged aspect to this because of social media. And it was wild to see. I had no idea there would be this much interest and this much international interest in this case. And I'm sure Lamore's, I mean, all of our social medias blew up. My YouTube blew up well past 600,000 during this trial from just over 200,000. So it's been, the interest has been intense.
Nice. Let's switch it up. Peter.
Going rogue on me.
I'm going crazy.
So we were talking a little bit before this started, and Bruce was talking about how much he loves trying cases. And I agree. That's why I became a lawyer, to do stuff like this and try cases. So for me, it is a little bit scary, I will say. This social media involvement. Now, the interest is cool. I love people learning about the civil and criminal justice system in our country. I think that's awesome. That's why I like to explain it, and all these panelists do. But if you have a high profile trial like this, there are ways that people can cut stuff together on TikTok to make it look a certain way that it might not actually be. So I think there is a bit of danger there for the jurors seeing something they think is actually a real video, but really Jason Momoa's face is put on the stand and he's not actually testifying. Pretty obvious, but maybe you look at that and you think it's real from the UK trial or something. So there is a scary element to this going too far. With what Emily's saying and people discussing stuff that didn't come in or discussing the UK trial, that's all fine. I did my best to pretend like I was a juror in this case and read none of the pretrial motions, look at none of the UK case, none of the evidence that didn't come in, and just try to see what the jury saw. From the jump, I tried to do that. And some people were annoyed because I didn't know why this was happening or why she didn't turn over her phone and things like that. But, you know, for jury trials, it can be a dangerous thing for people to be authoritative. None of the lawyers here, I think it's great, especially people like Emily who live stream. She's not editing anything. She's not twisting anything. She's
not even myself.
Exactly. And that's and that to me, that's different than people cutting stuff together. So that can be a little interesting for high profile trials if we're going to be streaming more of this.
Bruce?
I'm against social media. No, I'm kidding. I think, you know, this is like the OJ trial only on steroids. I walked down, I went to a CLE in Chicago during part of this trial. and I'm walking down Michigan Avenue, and my original focus for my channel was drill, hardcore gangster drill music. React to that and point all the illegal crap that these guys are doing in the videos. And then people are recognizing me as I'm walking down the street. So when we started doing this Johnny Depp thing, I just started. I looked at it kind of like like you were saying earlier. Like the jury kind of looks at it for the first time. I've had people point out to me, well, you don't know this, because I wasn't really following it, and I knew nothing, didn't even know who Amber Heard was before this trial. And but the engagement, like Emily was talking about, with the audience and how they want to know more. I try to be more educational through my posts. Like, okay, this is why they're doing this, and I think somebody said earlier they went through the verdict. I think you said they went through the verdict form, and I think they really appreciate that, because like they're not lawyers, and they don't understand why certain things happen. And so the social media engagement is so much more, I think, informative and enjoyable to digest from a media standpoint, when you have somebody interacting with you and telling you what's going on from a practitioner standpoint, than just watching the trial. I mean, my channel blew up like crazy over this last month. I think over 19 million views in just the last 28 days.
Fantastic.
And it's crazy.
Fantastic. Limor?
Yeah, so I, on my channel, I stay true to the law and facts, and I would only show clips straight from the courtroom, straight from the pool broadcast. I would ask my audience questions. If you were a juror, would this matter to you? What is your position on this? And I would constantly get tagged in videos, like Peter was talking about, viral videos, edited videos, things that were not brought up in this trial. People would tag me, and I would routinely make videos to debunk some of the things that were being spread about this case, and things that were never presented, and things that just didn't matter. And, I would get people who would say, you must be pro Amber because you're not showing this thing that happened in the UK or happened here. And it's, the answer to that is no. We're all anti-DV. I am not C-SPAN. We are all also working and providing the law and facts of this trial a certain way. And as professionals, as attorneys, I think it is our duty to not post those edited videos. Do not get into the viral audios and get mixed into the vitriol and all of those different horrible things that people were saying about both sides, right? Law and facts is what I want my audience to focus on. And, obviously you get the trolls, but I think that for us, keep it educational, fun, engaging. That is what we are there to do.
I think one of the things that we didn't bring up that we should bring up here is that there were 3 rebuttal witnesses that came into this case because this case was streaming, and because this case was on social media, and because people saw, oh, they're talking about the Hicksville Trailer Palace, which I need to go to now, but they're talking about the Hicksville Trailer Palace, and you get the owner coming in and being like, oh yeah, all that damage, it was $62. You're talking about TMZ, and you get a former TMZ employee being like, oh yeah, I'll come out to Virginia. That's not how that went down. And then you get the witness from SeaTac Airport being like, I was surprised no one had contacted me sooner. They were talking about the case. And then 3 witnesses for Johnny Depp that, as Amber Heard's team said, came out of the woodwork because this case was being streamed. And I think that lawyers have to be ready to handle that on cases that play out on social media in the future. I don't know what their email must look like with people reaching.
Oh my God. That was the power of social media.
They crushed rebuttal, but I think that it also should be mentioned, there's almost no doubt in my mind somebody on each of these legal teams watched Emily Baker or one of these channels that were streaming it. I'm sorry?
Law and Lumber. There was a video debunking the bed video that came in verbatim into court.
There's no doubt that they are watching the big channels They're seeing what people are talking about. They're seeing how the chat's reacting. They're seeing how a lawyer's breaking it down. That's something that I think is new too, because in fact, I mean, my guess is Bruce couldn't care less what other people are talking about his trial. That's how my dad would be. And he's like, yeah, whatever. I don't really care what people are saying about my trial. I'm here. I'm dug in. I think that is a way of the future, potentially, that you're going to have somebody assigned to looking through social media, if your case is high profile enough, seeing what they're saying. And that's going to be part of the research you're using when you're building this case.
Well, your comment section, my comment section, and the chat is almost a mock jury for the
That's
lawyers.
what I say.
Yes,
They could be jurors.
It really is. You get to see in real time feedback of what people are thinking and what matters to them. And I think we saw a huge course correction after the break for the judicial holiday in the way that Amber Heard testified. A huge course correction. And then they came in with the Milani palette, and she's like, "Well, obviously it wasn't this one." It's
Exactly.
like, on TikTok. Stop.
This exact one she kept in her purse their entire relationship. Well, maybe not this exact
one. Exactly. And so you know that things were course corrected because of what was on social media.
She testified very different in rebuttal than she did on direct.
Yep.
She's much more defiant.
So guys, I'm really excited because we're going to have Q&A a little later, but first we're going to go over lessons learned from the case. Okay, so Kathleen, could you please play Emily's video?
Now, if you don't have information that's helpful to this case, then you wouldn't be a witness, correct?
Objection, calls for speculation.
Sustained. Next question.
I'm not aware.
Okay, you know this case is being televised, right?
I am aware that there are cameras.
And so this gets you your 15 minutes of fame, doesn't
Objection, Your Honor, argumentative.
I can ask that question.
Can I?
So I stand to gain nothing from this. I'm actually putting myself kind of in the target of TMZ, a very litigious organization, and I'm not seeking any 15 minutes here. Though you're welcome to speculate. I could say the same thing by taking Amber Heard as a client for you.
A little argumentative, don't you think?
Oh, hardly. I find that to be purely logical. Thank you.
Now, are you aware?
I love the way Elaine handled that. It was one of those moments where Elaine was actually kind of human for a moment and was like a little argumentative. She's got spicy. I called her Umbridge on my channel because of the way she did her opening, but you've got spicy Draco calling out Umbridge in court. And it was such a moment, but that's all they had. They were up against the clock, which played a huge factor at the end of this trial. And they were trying, Elaine's like, "You're here for your 15 minutes. You're here for your 15 minutes. And that was all. You know, this is being televised, right? It was wild. It was such a good moment. So late in the trial.
It was
real.
You didn't practice that. Like, that's what I'm saying. Jurors can smell when people are being legit on the stand and when they are not being very legit on the stand. They can
Why
tell.
are you looking at me like that?
Why did you do that
What?
during your cross? What was that? Oh my God. But I did think, I genuinely thought that Morgan Tremaine did come in and want to kind of talk back to the other side. He's been watching. He's a rebuttal witness. He's been watching what's going on, right? And everyone has their passion for whatever side, right? Because you could have said the same thing on Johnny's side. Johnny's the real celebrity. Let's be really real about, who maybe might get you some fame, right? So I told my audience, I thought he was really rude, but that's coming from a lawyer perspective. When there's no cameras in the courtroom, and if it's a bench trial specifically, you would never speak to the attorney like that, right? Totally rude. But you know what the audience said? She was rude to him. She started it. And you know what? They're right. And again, that's the makeup of the jury. I would be a horrible juror for most cases because I already have a framework for how the law should work, quote unquote, right? So they're the jury. They get it.
And the same with Depp's testimony. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
It's okay. In that clip, though, she doesn't even touch him. She doesn't let a glove on it. No. And he answers a very specific question about alerting TMZ. And that's what these three witnesses did on rebuttal. They answered very, very specific questions that called into question very specific testimony from Amber Heard.
Right.
And they did it well. And I think we saw Johnny Depp got a little snappy on the stand too, but the jury seemed to be with him and the room seemed to be with him. You heard chuckles in those moments, which can come across as flippant. It could go the other way, but it seemed like that jury was with him.
A mega pint.
The mega pint was the mega pint, the grumpy. This was a very memeable trial.
Were
had a
you
lot of
there?
one-liners.
Were you there?
Were you there?
I think the lawyers set the stage for how the questioning goes. And I think there's been times I've been a little aggressive on cross, I get it. And some witnesses can get a little snippy and I get it. Very rarely is it where you're just being super sweet and they're coming at you. Then that's great. The jury hates them. But in this situation, Elaine's asking these questions. She's going to get whatever answer she gets. And I think that's the exact answer she deserved with that question. Because
Ask better questions. Ask better questions, Elaine.
Argumentative. Your Honor, it's not argumentative. Overruled. That was a little argumentative, wasn't it? Well, he repeated what you said.
Matching energy, Elaine.
All she had to do was say, you have no idea that Amber Heard had anything to do with the release of that. He'd have to say, no, I have no idea. Done. Get off the stand.
You just get 2 points off and cross and move on.
That's it. That's it.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Next, we're going to move on to Limor's video. Kathleen, can you play it?
This is your weekly reminder that the case between Johnny Depp and Amber Heard is a defamation case surrounding statements attributed to Amber Heard in a Washington Post article from 2018. Here's a clip from the cross-examination that I do not think is helpful for Johnny Depp's side. Is this statement taken by itself about Johnny Depp or about Amber Heard? And be honest, how often do you forget that this is a defamation case?
Then 2 years ago, I became a public figure representing domestic abuse, and I felt the full force of our culture's wrath for women who speak out. This is about Mr. Depp, isn't it?
No.
You wrote this in 2018, right?
Exactly.
And 2 years prior was 2016, right?
That's true.
Okay.
That's correct.
So
it's not about
May of
Johnny. It's about what happened to me
Ms.
after.
Heard, my question was May of 2016 is 2 years prior to December of 2018, correct?
That's correct.
All right. May 2016 is when you publicly accused Mr. Depp of domestic violence, right?
I got my restraining order at that time.
And you publicly accused Mr. Depp of domestic violence.
Yes, that was attached to my restraining order, so yes.
She stood no chance. She stood no chance to Camille Vasquez.
Thank you. Thank you. Every time Elaine said Vasquez, it just made my ears want to bleed. And at some point it felt almost disrespectful.
Yes, the first time I always understand. We always get things wrong. Look at my last name. You know, Matthew had no issues with it from the jump. But right after the first time, it does seem disrespectful. But yeah, this was the one moment where I thought, okay, back to the statements. Let's get back to the statements, right? But you hear what Amber is saying, and I thought that at that point, what she was saying was true and correct. But when you hear Camille's question and you're a juror and you're listening to 2018 and 2016, what's the difference? 2 years. Yes, it was 2 years ago. It was 2 years before. That's right. That's true. Yes. No, it wasn't about him, but yes, it was 2 years before that I accused him, right? So Camille really, during that cross-examination, it was her questions that were guiding everything, right? And that's what cross is. Direct examination is the client telling a story. Cross-examination is the attorney telling the story.
Mm-hmm. Any other comments on that video before we move on? No? Bruce, so everybody's been waiting for your next acting stint because of what you did earlier on this Zoom meeting. So do you have any lessons learned or a moment you wish to recreate for us?
There's so many. You know, I think one of the things that struck out for me was when you watch Johnny Depp, and you almost felt really bad for him when he starts talking about the domestic violence, and they played that clip. Go ahead, Johnny. Go ahead and you tell the world, Johnny, that you're a victim of domestic violence. And it really that moment got me, because it's like, it was like the courtroom was just super quiet. It's just him. And he was very deliberate and slow in how he delivered his answers. And then she calls him a fucking baby. I mean, you just, it's like, that was who the abuser was, or at least that's the message that was given in that moment. And then that theme seemed to play out throughout the trial.
Yeah.
So I'm sorry I didn't act it out. I don't have my
No. Oh, it was a serious
You could have
moment.
tried to act it out like Elaine did when she mocked Johnny Depp's voice in court in her questioning. Tell them you'll never see my eyes again. I'm like, are you serious right now? It got like, not just did Elaine get kind of personal with Johnny Depp, but so did your first acting job with Spiegel, calling Johnny Depp an idiot in deposition. How do you have that happen in deposition and still call that witness? Get a new expert.
Yeah.
Just a new, just get it, just start fresh.
They just didn't seem like they had the A team in whether it was their witnesses or the lawyers on Amber Heard's side.
Yeah.
Agreed. So last but not least, as always, we have Peter's video. Kathleen, can you play it?
One of the major lessons learned from watching this trial in its entirety is how important it is for trial lawyers to marry preparation and presentation. Over and over again, I thought Johnny Depp's lawyers seemed more prepared than Amber Heard's, and that was no more apparent than during the closing arguments. However, Camille Vasquez, one of the main lawyers for Johnny Depp, prepared her closing argument in written form, and she stood at the podium and read the entire closing argument. And while the content I thought was spot on, she had amazing content throughout her closing, hit all the important points. I do think a bit of the presentation was lost by her reading it. Let's take a look at a portion of it now.
Ms. Heard and her lawyers love to remind you of how the op-ed did not mention Mr. Depp by name. But Ms. Heard made sure that there would be no mistake about who she was referring to. She inserted 2 years ago, so the world would remember the photo of a battered woman.
However, when compared with Amber Heard's lawyer, Elaine Bredehoft, and her closing argument, which was done with little to no notes and more off-the-cuff type of presentation, it was unorganized and hard to follow. And I didn't think that her content was anywhere near Camille Vasquez's. So let's listen to a little clip of that.
And why did she get almost?
I think this is what we already listened to. If we want to skip ahead, that's fine with me.
When they came up,
I think this was that first clip that we listened to. So at the end, what was really interesting to me is the people on my channel. So again, as somebody who tries cases, I try to have an outline. So we say structured, a beginning, middle, and an end, but I try not to write the whole thing out and read it. And one of the lessons learned for me on this case is when a jury is with you, it doesn't matter if you read it. They're going to believe what you're saying. They like the content. They were with her. And while I try to make it as good of a presentation as I possibly can, as engaging as I possibly can to keep a jury engaged, it obviously didn't matter in this case because they ate up everything Camille Vasquez said in that closing. The people in my chat, same thing. They were like, no, you're wrong. We still loved it. And I take their word over mine every time because they're more likely to be on a jury than I ever will be.
Oh, Peter, I agree with you. I don't love the reading, but then you've got somebody else working tech and that very tight time, very tight timing. So I'm like, I understand why you're doing it.
Yes.
It's not my favorite, but I don't think it lessened a lot of the impact. Stylistically, it's not what I would want to do, but the impact was there and their tech worked well, which is always nerve-wracking having a multimedia closing and someone else working the remote. But their timing, they just did such a good job managing time. And we saw, I think, Elaine Bredehoft running out of time and getting very flustered when she came up
6 minutes. You didn't think 6 minutes was enough for rebuttal? Is that what you're saying?
Actually, I think Rottenborn did well with just the 6 minute rebuttal. I think he did good when you rein him in. I want to know if he ran over time by accident or if he ran over time to lessen her impact of undoing his. Like, is there a battle going on behind the scenes or was it an oopsie? I want to know. I'm so curious.
I do have a question. You had talked about preparation, in your last segment. Is that your preparation behind you?
Is this for after the preparation? Actually, that's not even mine. I just let other people drink that.
It's not quite a mega pint, but you need mega pints.
It's not quite a mega pint. No, it isn't.
Not quite.
But a very tall glass, which I thought necessary.
I'm going to move on to the next topic. It's an actual legal question for once. Why Virginia as jurisdiction? Emily?
You get to discovery because the anti-slap doesn't cut you off at the knees before you get to discovery.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Isn't this the Beverly Hills Bar Association? Shouldn't they know why you don't want to do it there?
That's what I think. I think Virginia was great. I think I think the law in Virginia worked for them. I think not getting cut off by that anti-slap early on, or not having to spend the money to litigate it before you get into discovery, worked for them. And then at the end of the day, the revised anti-slap in Virginia wasn't allowed to be used as a defense, even after all their litigating, because the law on point says you can't use it with intentional, with willful and malice in the defamation, as my words have stopped. I've been talking
And it was a
about
proper jurisdiction because the printers and the servers of the Washington Post were there. So he didn't just do something shady. It was still proper, but he forum chose, right?
It was a good choice. I mean, isn't that why you hire a lawyer to make these choices for you?
Yes, that's exactly right. Because who would have, I did not think it should have been in Virginia when I first started this case. And then I read up on it. I'm like, oh, okay. Because I was caught up on the fact that, hang on, everyone lives in LA. How are you going to get over 100 witnesses in this courthouse in Fairfax County, Virginia? And who are these jurists going to be? Who lives in Fairfax County, Virginia? I have no idea. But then that's why you get video depots of people in their cars in LA, because you need to get them whenever you can so you could play it in court.
And I think Johnny Depp had the money to fly in his witnesses. And, you know, video depots are great, but they're harder to stay engaged to. They're harder to listen to, and you lose some of the impact. And Johnny Depp brought in great characters from Isaac Baruch on, and you're just like, oh, he had ZZ Top on his security team. It was amazing testimony.
And if you don't think that was purposeful, just listen to Ben Chu argue it in closing, where he said everybody showed up for Johnny Depp.
Oh, absolutely
showed up for
purposeful.
Amber. I mean, they knew what they were doing. That was all part of the strategy.
Yep.
Great point.
And oddly enough, she had nobody to back up her story except for her sister, basically.
Yep.
Bruce, any further comment?
On jurisdiction? I mean, that's where the crime occurred.
Yeah. So we're going to move on to the next topic. So are there any other cases you guys are tracking? What's in the pipeline for everybody here? Emily?
Jen Shaw is going to trial in federal court in the Southern District of New York for conspiracy to money launder and conspiracy to commit wire fraud in the third part of a very large operation over telemarketing schemes that the feds have been involved in for years. Every other defendant has pled, and she is sitting there by herself. Her first assistant that we've seen on multiple seasons of Real Housewives of Salt Lake City has flipped and taken a deal, and it is going to be spicy at Southern District of New York with Jen Shaw. So that is the one that is next up for me that's going to trial.
But will not be televised.
It will not be, but I will be there.
Yeah.
Bruce?
Ooh.
The YNW Melly trial is going on. I don't know if he's a rapper, and this is out of Fort Lauderdale. Or not, Fort Lauderdale. And this is a case where he and another guy killed two guys in his car and tried to claim it was a drive-by shooting. It's a death penalty case. They're getting close to being done with jury selection. So that's a really big case in the rap world.
Which you're an expert at, Bruce. So we're here for that.
I can spin a rhyme, and I've got my intro. Bruce,
I believe you.
Let him drop bars. Let him drop bars right now.
That's it. That's all I can do. I dropped as many as I got.
Well, so what we're going to do is we're going to do another CLE panel next week, and we'll actually charge for that one, and he'll drop a beat for us.
You got to charge big money for that one.
Yeah,
behind the paywall.
That's right. Exactly.
Very content creator of you.
Yeah. Look for it on look for it on the VHBA's website and Ticketmaster. Lamore,
I track all of the celebrity divorces, things, new and old. And I'm also going to track the RICO case with Young Thug. I know Marilyn Manson is suing for defamation, a close friend of Johnny Depp's. And I'm also going to profile the Pam Hupp case, the criminal trial with her that was chronicled on the Thing About Pam on Hulu. What a great show. If you want hilarious, God forgive me, it was a criminal trial, but if you want hilarious tape on testimony in court, Pam Hupp. I mean, the things that happen in this show they happened in real life. She did these things in court in real life. So very interesting case. I'm going to profile that, and celebrity divorces and some weddings, I throw them in there, but I'm definitely watching Emily's channel for the Housewives content.
I love the Housewives, but you've got Rob Kardashian and Black China coming back up too with the revenge porn stuff. I mean,
That's
there's
right.
in the pop culture world, and I stick mostly to pop culture with some criminal based on my background, but in the pop culture world, there is just so much going on. People keep getting in trouble. And, yesterday, Tom Girardi was finally disbarred. So it's time to swoop back into the Girardi bankruptcy too. It's been such a crazy scandal and it's still going. I mean, I started covering that in 2020. So it's that case is never going to end.
Wow.
Peter, how about you?
Yeah, we've done some on that Girardi case too, because he was a plaintiff's personal injury lawyer, and it's pretty gross to go through that. That one was not fun to talk about, but people need to hear it.
It's wild.
Yeah,
gross is an understatement. And they're charging RICO in that too, or they're looking at RICO in that case for the law firm.
And honestly, lawyers can do that to their clients. There's ways to do it, and he basically did it every which way he possibly could. So the Vallow and Daybell murder trials in Idaho, I've been following, and I'm probably going to do some content on that. And then there's a couple cases in my home state of Florida, if you can believe that, crazy stuff happening here. The Gabby Petito case, her family's filing some civil lawsuits. Most people have heard about that, where she went, on the road trip with her fiance, disappeared. He comes back home, then he disappears. They both end up dead. He apparently admitted that he killed her, and then he died by a self-inflicted gunshot wound. All sorts of stuff going on with that, civil cases. And I know a lot of the lawyers involved, so that kind of makes it fun. That's happening here in my backyard. And then an unfortunate one, my old law school professor at Florida State University College of Law, Dan Markell, was literally assassinated by a hitman in his driveway. And it was a murder for hire that his in-laws were implicated in just recently. There was a gunman and a driver that have already been convicted of murder. The connecting piece was just during the same time as Johnny Depp convicted of murder and conspiracy, connecting his in-laws family, which is a well-to-do South Florida oral surgeon and dentistry family, paying somebody to murder their sister's ex-husband, Dan Markell, who is a up-and-coming legal scholar, criminal law professor at FSU College of Law. And the final piece, Charlie Adelson, the brother-in-law, has finally been indicted. So people are waiting for that last shoe to drop. And it's a really interesting case. And again, here in my home state. So I've got some personal feelings on that one. So that's what's in the pipe for us.
That sounds like the Murdaugh case going on in South Carolina right now. That's a wild case.
It's insane. The stuff that's going on in that. Yeah, we'll cover that too. That's not real life.
No, I need to have a conversation with you, because I was going through the Gabby Petito stuff, and there's a tortious interference with a corpse in Florida. I have so many questions about what's going on in Florida.
You've actually had one of those cases. It's usually with funeral homes where they screw it up.
Right.
Oh yeah, it's wild. It's wild.
I want to see the discovery on that.
I mean, I need to have a conversation. I want to know how that law came about. Like, who messed up what to end up with tortious interference with a corpse being law in Florida?
It's Florida, baby.
There we go.
Everything happens in Florida.
That's right. So we're going to move on now to the final segment of this panel. It's the Q&A, where we have the people at the bar have collected questions. And if you have more questions, please feel free to submit them in the Q&A box for those of you attending on Zoom. And hopefully we'll have enough time to get to them. So the first question is just a general question for everybody. The question is, since the jury instructions didn't include how to find that Waldman was an agent of Depp, how do we think that the jury decided that? Emily?
I don't know. I don't know how they decided it. I think it was a compromise verdict. We didn't have a lot of evidence. I mean, could it be circumstantial? Like, he was his lawyer, so obviously. I don't know. I don't know how they decided. I don't know how they found malice.
He's his lawyer. That's it. It's the only
that was it.
here. He's his lawyer. That's literally
I
it.
agree. I think that's the only thing. I think you're right. We don't know, but and it was a compromise verdict, but I think it's just a lawyer, a client.
Just the relationship. Just that relationship did it.
Fair. That's a good question. Question number 2. With the interview Elaine gave today, is there any concern that she is discrediting a core piece of our judicial system because they didn't win? In the opinion of a jury or our peers, they also had a say when it came to picking the jury. So do you have any questions or issues on that? Emily?
Can somebody, I didn't see it. Can somebody tell us what happened?
Elaine's in full PR spin mode with a new makeover. I don't know why they don't actually have the PR people doing it instead of the attorney, unless they are trying to make sure they are maybe still covered by litigation privilege for the statements that she's making. But she came out and said she thought the jury was absolutely influenced by social media. I don't know how she's ever going to back that up, seeing that they introduced social media into this case on their own. But I think that they are in PR spin mode. And I think that their appeal will be PR as well, because their appeal is going to be, this is all the evidence you didn't consider. It's not all proper evidence, Elaine. Let's talk about you telling the jury the wrong standard for malice. Let's talk about that. Let's have that conversation.
Yeah, Bruce, it was basically, we had a mountain of evidence that they suppressed, and it was unfair that they suppressed it. We won in the UK, but we weren't allowed to tell the jury that. The UK judge found 12 acts of domestic violence, including sexual violence. And it was a totally unfair verdict because the jury was, like Emily said, influenced by social media. How could they not with that 10-day break? And it was just basically, that's what she was saying. But I do think a lot of it is fine. You can cry sour grapes about losing. I don't think everybody wants it to be defamation and say she's going to get sued and Johnny's going to get money. It's not going to happen based on those interviews.
That is what it sounds like, those sour grapes, because you can lose gracefully and say, you know what, we put our best foot forward. The jury gave it their full attention. We disagree with the verdict. And
we disagree with some of the judge's rulings. That's fine to say.
Yep.
We fought hard.
The interviewer, to her credit, did say 3 times, asked, the jury didn't agree with your client and the evidence, essentially 3 times. And Elaine's like, Amber Heard was demonized. Amber Heard was demonized. Amber Heard was demonized.
That was their tactic. What was yours? What was your strategy? Your strategy didn't work. And you know, this court system is in place for a reason. The jury is there for a reason. You all chose the jury for a reason, and they did their job, and you have to respect it. And if you want to file an appeal, go ahead and do that. I think that, you know, no one should have done an interview today. No one.
What did we expect, though? Amber Heard's entire testimony was, it's everyone else's fault but mine. And Elaine Bredehoff went on today and said, the judge should have done this, the jury should have done that, social media should have done that. And again, it's everyone else's fault.
She should. I do agree with you, Emily, though, that she should have had a spin doctor or somebody else, PR person, to try to rehabilitate Amber's image instead of the lawyer just kind of covering their own ass.
Especially the lawyer that a lot of people didn't love. You know,
no, Rottenborn could have done that. Rottenborn was more likable of the two.
I didn't like her hockey helmet haircut.
It's the new haircut's better on the Today Show. It's better.
She looked great in lavender. She looked wonderful in lavender. Rottenborn was excellent. That other attorney was kind of cute.
Wait,
Honestly,
Needlehoft? Not baby Rottenborn. Not my cat's Google searching Needlehoft.
Wait, was it Adam? Is his name Adam?
I don't know his first name. They all had such dramatic, like villainous last names. It was Bredehoft and Needlehoft and Rottenborn. It was just
hilarious.
It was meaty. And then on the other side, it's Ben and Elaine. Or Ben and Camille.
Ben and Camille, right? I forgot that Rottenborn is also Ben.
They're all Ben.
That was obvious during Elaine's closing when she kept saying, I agree with Ben. I agree with Ben. I was like, what? Oh.
Yeah. And when Ben and Amber Heard were talking and she's like, well, Ben, and they're just like having this like casual first name conversation when she's on the stand. I'm like, what's happening? Where are we right now?
So the next question is pretty good. What are the biggest lessons for fellow attorneys to learn with respect to the do's and do nots of trying high profile cases like this before the court of public opinion?
Be prepared.
Not much should change. Yeah. Be prepared. Do your best job for your client. Don't put on a show for the cameras. That, like I said, people see through that. I really think that. I don't think much should change.
Yeah, I agree, Peter. I try your case. Try your case. Be prepared. I mean, have witnesses that answer the questions that you want answered. And if your witnesses can't answer that question, don't put them on just because you got to put somebody on.
Yep. And I think when it comes to monitoring social media, a lot of us try our case with the close in mind, knowing what you've got to get to at the end of the day. You can't let the court of public opinion sway your game plan. You have to try your case. And yes, there's room for minor corrections like the Milani palette, but I think we were seeing kind of swooping recorrections from Amber Heard's team based on social media. And they were addressing almost directly addressing the complaints on social media when they came back after the break. And I don't think that that benefits their case because the jury's lost because you're not speaking to the jury anymore. And you've got to focus on what's happening in the four walls of the courtroom first.
Mm-hmm. So moving on to the fourth question. How do you guys respond to people saying that this is a huge setback for women who are survivors of DV?
This was a defamation case, and all of us in our field have always known that men can be victims, women can be victims, men can be perpetrators, women can be perpetrators. I think that the world might be a little bit shocked by that. I know they turned Me Too into Men Too, but we've always known that. Everyone I've spoken to is anti-DV, and I think that everyone needs to be reminded this was a defamation case. Defamation case. This is not a verdict in a DV trial. No. And a judge saying in the UK that there was DV doesn't mean there was DV. And 7 people on a jury saying that the finding for Johnny Depp and finding 1 count for Amber Heard doesn't mean there wasn't DV. Like Johnny said, were you there? No, we weren't. We don't know what happened, but this was a defamation case. And I think we need to remind people that, it's a defamation case. It wasn't a DV case, and we are all anti-DV.
And this wasn't a traditional Me Too case either, where you have women speaking up against someone in a position of power saying, oh yes, and me too. And that, though this happened during the height of that movement, it is a domestic violence case between spouses. And then that's the underpinning of the defamation case. It's not your traditional Me Too case, though that was the backdrop of what was going on societally when the op-ed came out. I think people keep trying to pin this case to what the movement is, and that's not what this case is about. And it's a reminder, they're trying to make Amber Heard the face of DV, but as Lamore said, DV doesn't have a face. It can happen to anyone in any type of relationship, in any socioeconomic status. It can happen to people you would never expect. And hopefully it takes some of the stigma out of that to have an open conversation that it's not okay to be in a relationship like this one that we've heard on audio, that we've seen through photos. This is not a healthy relationship. And that is the conversation. They can't make her the face of domestic violence, and they keep trying. They're not going to make her the face of Me Too, and they keep trying.
No matter what the witness is, whether it's a child witness, a cop, a man or a woman, their testimony has to withstand scrutiny. And that's one of the questions I ask on voir dire if you have a child victim. I mean, I ask, the jury, can you look at a child? We'd be so sympathetic that you just have to believe it. And that's one of the things about the Me Too movement. Women should be believed. Well, of course they should be believed, but they should be able to withstand scrutiny in a court of law. And guess what? Amber Heard did not withstand some scrutiny, because if you look at the provably false things she testified to, I mean, not just one, not just two, it was a panoply of things that she testified to. So the people who say this is a setback for the women's movement or the Me Too movement or domestic violence, first of all, the guys who commit domestic violence, it's overwhelmingly men. They're almost always just a pain in the ass to deal with. I mean, nothing's ever their fault, blah, blah, blah. And
it's like there's a personality type. Like
there is.
All the doctors said.
Yeah, right, exactly. But it's just, I don't see that in this case. Like Emily said, I think this is a defamation case, but it did play out like a domestic assault case, big time.
Big time. And I thought one of the really important things about the Me Too movement in this case, when I first saw the makeup of the jury, it was very heavily male dominated. But the jury that actually deliberated, I think, was just 4-3, right? 4 men, 3 women.
5-2.
5-2.
5-2. Okay, so closer than it could have been, because I think when we started, it was 9 men, 3 women. So it got a lot closer, kind of as it got closer and closer to actually verdict time. So I'm glad there were women on the jury. Glad it wasn't a 7-person male jury, which it could have been because they selected it randomly. I know some jurors dropped out, and then some female dominating lawyers. So, and I think a female dominating judge that kept this circus from going off the rails. I mean, we may have disagreed with some of her evidentiary decisions, but she ran a tight ship. She didn't take much lip from anybody. She made her calls on the objections. I thought she did a great job throughout this trial as well, personally. So that's who we should be focusing on if we're saying, you know, oh, this whole Me Too movement. It's like, yeah, victims are victims no matter what their gender is. So celebrate the females that crushed during this trial.
I was not surprised to learn that Judge A is a retired Marine. I was like, oh, this is where the precision is.
Exactly.
I think, and I agree with you. I don't agree with all of her rulings, but she was consistent in them across the board. And I would rather take a consistent judge any day of the week.
At least you know what you're getting.
Pleasant. You exactly know what you're getting, and you can work around it.
She didn't seem like she had an ego. You know, she
Not
didn't
at
have
all.
Black Rose disease.
Not at all. Yeah, she was great.
All right, everybody, we're just about out of time. I had a wonderful time. I don't know about you. And it's time for me to thank our panelists. First off, Emily, where can the viewers find you?
Absolutely. I'm at the Emily D. Baker all over social media and here on YouTube. Well, we're streaming partly on YouTube. At the Emily D. Baker all over social media is where to find me. YouTube is my primary house. And then on the TikToks and the Instagrams and the Twitter things.
All right, Lamore.
I am at Lawyer Lamore everywhere, mainly on TikTok, sometimes on IG, and I just started a YouTube channel. And I also have my Love and Order podcast. And Emily, as you've already confirmed, you're going to be on the pod.
We're going to talk on the pod.
Full interviews. Yes, perfect. Yes. Thank you for having me.
Thanks for being here. Bruce.
You can find me at CLR Bruce Rivers, Criminal Lawyer Reacts. I'm on YouTube. We have Instagram, Twitter, and we also have a Patreon account. And we have, if you sign up for the Patreon account, we use that money for indigent bail money for guys who are on low-level cases to just, you know, like you're there and you can't afford bail. So we've bailed a few people out on that, which is kind of a fun thing to do. And then when they get the money back when the case is over, so they get to keep the money.
Oh, wow.
Great.
That's awesome, Bruce.
That's very cool.
Fantastic. Peter.
Yes, I am at Tragos Law on all the social medias except YouTube. I'm the lawyer you know on YouTube. Check us out. We'll have some fun together.
Wonderful. And also on behalf of the producer of this panel, Mr. Matthew Hobbs, who I wish were here, but he's in the background. Thank you so much. A special thanks goes out to Randy Bandman, Arkady D. Pruft, and a very special thanks to my comrade, Gena Kluchinov. I probably butchered your last name. So sorry, sir. And from the BHBA, and for everyone else, thank you. Thank you for spending time with us today, geeking out over the law. And this has been a production of the Entertainment Law section of the Beverly Hills Bar Association. I'm Matthew with 2 T's, Giovanucci. See you again when there's an appeal. But for now, goodbye, guys.
Well, we know that's coming.
Yeah.